I found out that more people know me now because I'm on Fox News Channel every weekend than ever knew me from running for president, which is almost frightening. Except still, I have occasionally somebody come up and they don't quite know if it's me because I'm in some remote airport. And if you ever think you know someone, please don't ask this question, which I get asked often. It's this one. Are you who I think you are? Now, how do I know what you're thinking? And to me, it's such a ridiculous question that when people ask me that, now when they ask that, I just say, you think I'm Brad Pitt, don't you? And they just go, no, man, Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you've looked at the last couple of election cycles, you might want to be discouraged, but don't be. Let me be very honest with you from the standpoint of my own party. Republicans are not getting into trouble because they were too conservative. They got into trouble because they didn't stick by the conservative principles they were supposed to espouse. And when we stick to our stuff, we tend to win. I'm very concerned, if there's any concern at all, it's that we're getting a lot of advice from the far left. And I'm hearing people like James Carville and Arianna Huffington telling us on the conservative side what we ought to do to win elections. Excuse me. First of all, I wouldn't count their advice with a great deal of credibility. And secondly, I have grave doubts as to the sincerity of their offer to assist us. So with all due respect, the history shows that we win when we are unapologetically pro-marriage, pro-family, and economically conservative, not when we somehow throw the values of our voters under the bus and act like we're ashamed of being pro-life and pro-family. We need to stand unapologetically for the issues that got many of us involved. I'm not pro-life because I got into politics. I got into politics because as a person who is unflinchingly and irrevocably pro-life, I've come to understand that this is an issue that will in fact define our civilization and will help us to understand whether we will be true to the principles of our founders that gave birth to this country. There's intrinsic value and worth in every human being that is equal, and nobody is worth less, and nobody is worth more. And let me tell you why that's important. Because if we really believe that, then we have no other conclusion to which to arrive than to believe that from the moment of conception, every human life has a value, that it has intrinsic worth and deserves the respect and dignity of any other human life, and that no person has the right to deny the value of that life by ending it prematurely because it represents an economic or social disruption to those who are its caretakers. If we ever get to the place where we believe that we can end a life because it represents an economic disruption or a social interference to our lives, and we tell that to the generation coming behind us, I just want you to understand what we've really told them and given them a license to do. If we tell our children's generation that many of their would-be playmates and classmates never made it outside the womb because their lives were terminated, their lives represented an economic or social disruption. If that takes hold in our children's generation, one day when they are our caretakers and we are old and infirm, and when our lives represent an economic inconvenience to them and interrupts their social lives, we have already given them a license to take us out. I'm not giving my kids that easy of a time to get rid of me. My son did not intend to make a disastrous cake. In fact, his motives were the purest I think I'd ever seen up to that point of his life. And his efforts were genuinely those of a diligent young man who was trying to do something unselfish for others. You ever hear people say, it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you're sincere? Well, he was sincere, but it mattered what he did a lot. And his fault was not his sincerity, nor was it his diligence and hard work. His fault was one thing, and even it was innocent. He did not know what the definition of a dash was, so he made up his own. And he didn't think it would matter that much. And today there are people who really don't think it matters that much how we define marriage. They don't think it really matters that much how we define life. But it matters a lot. And the fact is, sincerity and hard work and diligence and how we feel about something is not as important as being right. And some things are right and some things are wrong. And it was wrong to make a cake with a cup of salt, to make up your own definition when you didn't know the right one. And it's wrong for us to redefine the basic virtues of our society, culture, and civilization because we either don't want to know or we just simply have never sought to find out. This is why the Center for Arizona Policy is an important part of making sure that truth is at least heard. It may not always be followed, but it has a right to be heard. Life is perishable. We come into this world on our way out of it. None of us are going to live forever. 100 years from tonight, not one of us will still be around. We'll all have perished. And the question is, with this life God has given us, what will we do? Will we use it or will we lose it? Will we choose to give it away or will we throw it away? My experience is the happiest people I know are the people who give it away, not the ones who say it's all mine, because they're the ones who throw it away. The first part of Yad Vashem depicts what happened when the Nazis came to power, and they forced the Jewish children to wear the Stars of David in bright yellow on their clothing. And it was not to award them or to honor them. It was so that they would be separated, isolated, and then humiliated by their classmates. And my daughter just looked at that and thought, how could anyone do this to a child? When we came to the part of Yad Vashem that depicted what happened in the Warsaw ghettos, she was shocked to see the photos taken by the Nazis themselves. My daughter gripped my hand ever so tightly as we walked and saw these things. When we came to the part of Yad Vashem that depicted Auschwitz and Dachau, we saw thousands and thousands of human bodies stacked on top of each other, so much so that it no longer even appeared to look like human beings, but sticks of lumber. And I was praying, God, I hope that she gets it. As you exit Yad Vashem, there's a guest book. And there's a space there where you can put your name and your address, and then under that basic information, a place for comments. As we approached the guest book, my daughter reached up into my pocket, took a pen from my pocket, and she began to write in the guest book. And I looked over her shoulder as she did. I was watching to see what she would write. And I watched her in her childish 11-year-old scrawl, scribble in her name and our address. Then I watched her pause for a second when it came to the point of the comments. There underneath her name, these were the words that my daughter wrote. Why didn't somebody do something? That's all she wrote. Why didn't somebody do something?